Up to 53.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Parkwich, the Executive Director of English Speaking Union, and I want to welcome you here today. This is a great opportunity for us to talk about our EIA and immigrant programs. Yesterday at the gala, you saw a lot of a good background on the programs that we do at the ESU. Our immigrant services and our EIA program has been around for a very long time, over 60 years. So in response to a lot of requests that we get from the branches, some of who currently do EIA, but those who are interested in seeing if there's a possibility that they could develop a program like this in their areas, we've decided to do this session, which will allow you to hear specifically from volunteers and also students that come through our program about the benefits and the quality of the work that's done. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mona Weiss, who's our Senior Manager of Immigrant Services.
Thank you, Karen, for the warm introduction. Before we get started, I'd like to ask the other members of our immigrant programs team to introduce themselves. Matt?
Hello, I'm Matt Hudson, and I am the Program Associate Volunteer Services for English in Action.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carl Hart, and I'm the Program Officer for Student Services.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Jasmine Tomas, and I am the AmeriCorps Vista for the ESU.
So today you will have the opportunity to hear directly from a panel of students and volunteer tutors in the English in Action Conversation program. They'll speak to us about their experiences and the impact that the program has had on their lives. I hope that you'll find today's session informative and inspiring. As Karen has mentioned, English in Action, like the ESU, has a very long history. For more than half a century, the program has been bringing together newcomers to the United States with volunteer tutors to practice English. The program improves English proficiency and builds confidence. It helps English language learners in their daily lives, giving them the confidence to attend a parent-teacher conference and the language skills to communicate with a healthcare provider. For many of our students, English in Action is the only time during the entire week when they have a chance to practice English. But equally as important, the The program provides opportunities for cross-cultural exchange. It connects people and communities that would otherwise never have the chance to meet. And in the process, our worldviews and perspectives are challenged and broadened. Ask anyone and they will tell you that English in Action is welcoming and inclusive. Imagine for a moment that you were in New York City at the national headquarters of the ESU. You enter the building through bright red doors and are immediately struck by a massive library of literally thousands of books. Students in EIA can borrow a collection of Shakespeare sonnets or an Agatha Christie mystery or a textbook about verb tenses and indirect pronouns. In our garden lounge, you will meet a Burmese doctor sitting next to an asylum seeker from Venezuela, or a diplomat from Japan drinking tea with an international student from Brazil. On one of the sofas is a refugee from Syria talking to an attorney from Russia. We call our office the ESU House for a reason. You will also meet an army of dedicated ESU volunteers. They are paired with students from nearly every corner of the globe. Conversation partners share recipes, do crossword puzzles together, and prepare for job interviews. They talk about climate change, their favorite movies, and which subway line you take to get to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. English in Action is a place where students feel safe taking risks, where it is okay to make mistakes speaking English. It is a place where strangers become friends, and it is a place where volunteers can give back to their local communities. EIA tutors keep coming back. They volunteer for years or sometimes even decades. Why? Because they are passionate about the program. They know that they will be making a difference in someone else's life. And now, Matt and Carl will share some more information about the impact of our programs for English language learners. Matt?
Great, thank you, Rona. What I really want to highlight about English in Action and that I want to bring to the attention of our audience here is the dedication of our volunteer tutors. They have clocked in around 38,000 hours a year in conversation time. Many of them talk with more than one student multiple times in a given week and build long-lasting connections with our participants. Many still keep in contact with their first student years after the English in Action conversations have concluded. And I think this is because of what tutors themselves get out of the program. They speak to amazing people, learn about other cultures, and become a key part in making a newcomer feel welcome in New York City and in the United States. I have only been in this position managing the tutor side of English in Action for a little over a year now, and I mean, what a year it's been. But what I have seen is a positive and welcoming environment created by all of our engaged and motivated participants. And I want to thank both tutors and students for that. And now I'm going to pass it off to Carl to speak more about the student side.
Thanks, Matt. So yeah, I'm going to just talk a little bit about how EIA changes the lives of our students. So English in Action has a tremendous impact on students from around the world. It provides learners of English with an inclusive and welcoming environment where they can build fluency, increase their confidence, and participate in cultural exchange. The program and its impact on students is a powerful reflection of the ESU mission to expand minds, strengthen friendships, and unlock opportunities through the English language. So now let's take a closer look at the students that we serve in the program. So since 1976, we've actually had over 10,000 students in English in Action, and this year alone, we had 375 students. Something very important to know about our students is that 50% of them are actually on scholarship. They do not pay any fees to participate in the program. And now these scholarships help to broaden the social impact of EIA. They ensure that students of all backgrounds are able to access our vital services, and they allow us to fulfill the ESU mission to unlock opportunities. And the students in the program, of course, as has been said, come from all over the world. And they create a vibrant community whose diversity provides learning opportunities for students and tutors alike. This global village on 39th Street is no doubt part of the reason why tutors come back year after year to volunteer. And we know that EIA has a measurable impact on our students. After 1 year in the program, 90% of students report that they are confident using English in everyday life, and 86% report that they're comfortable using English in professional contexts. And I think that these successful student outcomes are really a testament to the dedication of EIA tutors, students, and staff to create a welcoming and effective learning environment.
Thank you, Carl. And now let's move on to the most exciting part of today's program, our panel of students and volunteer tutors.
Great. So I'm happy to introduce our two tutor panelists. Our first one is Ginny Donnelly, who has volunteered for English in Action for 2 years, but started in the field 15 years ago with the International Center. So welcome, Ginny. And hello. Thank you. And our second tutor is Brian Decker, who's worked over 4 decades in advertising, marketing, and digital media. He has been an EIA tutor since January 2017 and has volunteered weekly with another organization, God's Love We Deliver. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, and so I'm very happy to introduce our student panelists. So first we have Wen Chen. Wen is living her dream working as an integrative health coach in the very international city of New York. She formerly worked as a practicing oncologist and as an associate professor in Taiwan, and she is thrilled to be enjoying and communicating with all of the various cultures that make up NYC. And our second panelist is Fernando Matsubara. Fernando is a Brazilian in NYC trying to figure out exactly what is the American dream. He is passionate about culture, the arts, and science. And he is looking for shared experiences with others to build a more inclusive community and a fairer society. And I should also mention that Fernando has been working with his tutor, Ginny, who's also on the panel, for over the past year.
Okay, so before we get into the questions, I just wanted to mention a couple things. First, just a little note to our audience that may not know, when we're talking about English in Action, sometimes we shorten it to EIA. I just want people to know that when we're talking that is a way for us to shorten the title of the program. Also, for our audience, if you're listening and you have a question for the panelists, please type them into the chat box below, and Jasmine will screen those questions, and we will get to them. Hopefully we'll have time for them at the end of the event. Okay, so if you have questions, type them into the chat. And other than that, why don't we start with the first question. So I'm starting with the tutors here, and I'm going to start with Ginny. But the question to both the tutors is why did you decide to start tutoring?
Well, as Matt mentioned, I started tutoring 15 years ago with a different organization. Why I started was, until then, I'd been helping in my daughter's schools, in elementary school and middle school, reading with some of the students, helping small groups with math, and I really enjoyed it. But then she went to high school and I couldn't do that anymore. One of the other parents told me that she volunteered at the International Center. And I said, hey, this sounds great, because I love helping people learn. And with adult students, It's all the fun part, none of the difficult part. Because the one difficult part with kids is if they're not interested, trying to motivate. And adults are motivated. So it's like being a grandparent instead of a parent. If there's a problem, you hand the kids back to the parent. So I started this 15 years ago. I've been doing it ever since with individual students and also small groups, not through EIA, but through other organizations. And I love it.
Great. I'm sure it's nice to switch from children to a better kind of conversation that you can have with highly motivated people. Thank you, Ginny. Brian?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me for this panel celebrating the 100-year anniversary of ESU. So this is a great opportunity. So the question is, why did I decide to start tutoring? Well, in 2016, it was a strange year politically, and there were some governmental policies that were a little frightening in terms of US immigration. And I think as a second-generation American, I really felt compelled to actively respond to some of these unfair immigration policies. Let me just give you an example, because I just read something literally this morning. In 2018, thousands of children were separated from their parents as part of the administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy. What I read this morning is there are still 545 migrant children who were separated at the southern border who yet to be found their parents. And in some cases, this is like unbelievable. Some of these kids were less than 2 years old at the time they were separated. So the bottom line is English in Action really provided me an incredible opportunity to be with really an amazing, diverse group of students and really expand my understanding of different cultures.
Great, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I mean, that's something that's very important to point out, and thank you that you get that chance to connect with other people on a different level that may connect you more to the issues of today. So thanks for that answer, Brian.
No problem.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask a question, and this is for Fernando. What are some of the challenges and barriers you have faced as an immigrant?
So thank you, Carl. Hi, everyone. I've had two major challenges here. I think the first one is the language. So when I moved to here, I didn't have any confidence to speak in public, even to make a small talk with my neighbors. I couldn't do it. So, and it was also hard to feel comfortable when asking for information or requesting a favor or ordering something at a restaurant. So in this sense, I think being in contact with other people at English Speaking Union who've been experiencing the same circumstances helped me improve a lot, helped me feel confident. And I learned from them a lot. So how to not feel afraid of making mistakes or to take advantage of opportunities to practice and improve my English. When I think about this, I always remember, it always reminds me of a good friend I made at English Speaking Union. She's from Belarus, and she didn't have a perfect English, but she could communicate everything she wanted. So it impressed me the way she was kind of boldly communicate things she wanted. So I start to feel more comfortable speaking. So that's why I think it was important to attend the English in Action, because it brought me this confidence to speak. Sometimes I still feel that I can't be myself completely. Sometimes I'm in the middle of a discussion or a conversation, and I want to express something, but I can't gather the right words or the right ideas to explain my point of view. But I think I've built confidence enough to speak up in most situations, which is very good for me. So another challenge for me is something that I call a natural feeling of non-belonging to this place. I still feel it. What I mean is that it's a little bit difficult to recognize myself as part of the American society in general. People here don't speak my language. They have different lifestyles and ways to deal with everyday happenings. For example, for me, when everybody seems to be in a rush here, while in Brazil, people take things easier, I think. And it's not negative criticism. It just seems different from what I was used to. So it amazes me. Another example is when I walk through the lobby in my building, and I always see dozens and dozens of packages. For me, it's kind of overwhelming. It's something like, oh, shopping here is a serious thing. So sometimes it's hard to recognize myself in this, as part of the American society. And thinking of these two challenges, major challenges I've had here, English Speaking Union and the English in Action and programs were very important. And I would like to thank all the English Speaking Union staff for helping me out, especially allowing me to practice the language and to build this confidence and to meet other immigrants with whom I could share experiences and learn. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Fernando. And of course, it's our pleasure to help all of the students in our programs. And I think your remarks, anyone who's learned another language or maybe gone abroad to live for a period of time would really relate to what you just said. So my next question is for Hong Wen. What has made you feel welcome or at home in the US?
Thank you, Carl. Hi, everyone. Every time when we students and tutors got together at English in Action, we talked in groups, and everyone is encouraged to express themselves freely. To me, the setup feels like we are a family with members coming from various cultures. All thoughts and every idea are welcomed. Therefore, able to speak freely, to be heard, and to be understood is why English in Action, as well as the English classes at ARNIC, made me feel welcome and at home in the US. In addition, people like Carl, Sue Brown, my teachers at ARNIC, and my tutors, Nancy Lewis and Janice Abrahamson, are always there to help. They are also the people I want to give special thanks to in this special anniversary. Without them, my learning would not be a blossoming garden. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Hong Wen. I think when you talk about the idea of family at English in Action, anyone who's been at our building when we're having in-person programs definitely gets this sort of family, home-like feeling when they come into the ESU. So thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna swing back to the tutors now. And I wanted to ask both of them, what has been your biggest achievement as a tutor? And I think we're gonna start with Brian now.
Well, I think tutoring for me has been a very dynamic learning process and really extremely rewarding. I think each student session I've had has given me inspiration, knowledge, and the impetus to do some more research. So I've been able to share a lot of these learnings that I've accumulated, even with some of the tutors. I was lucky and fortunate enough to be able to actually do a workshop with the tutors on understanding body language and cultural differences. But a lot of it seems to focus on just trying to really utilize a lot of best practices. I mean, my real accomplishments, I really owe to my students. They've been a continued source of inspiration. They've allowed me to test a lot of things, especially on Zoom. Zoom has been a major, major change, and for the most part, actually a blessing. I think it's actually has helped us improve overall communications. So, you know, it's allowed me to test out with my students a lot of exercises, techniques, tools covering areas like stress, pronunciation, articulation, rhythm, and tools specifically to help them understand and expand their vocabulary on their own. Empowerment is very much part of that. especially when it comes to things like suffixes and prefixes and pronouns and idioms. And probably one of the things that's actually changed the most is, since, as it was pointed out, there's so many reduced opportunities for most of our students to actually have conversations in English more because of the pandemic. I've used this as a way of really helping them focus on doing oral presentations or even just oral readings. It's been really, amazing, because reading out loud is a really tremendous surrogate, not just for the conversations themselves. It helps their reading skills, but more importantly, it helps their pronunciation. It expands their vocabulary, and it even helps them use a lot of the 43 muscles that are in their face that you may not actually use some of these things in pronouncing English. For example, in Japanese, there are 5 less sounds that are actually made. In Korean, there is no stress. So the language English can be complex, and it's certainly time intensive. And I've been able to use things like limericks and poems and articles and TED Talks and New Yorker cartoons and YouTube videos, and Zoom has really been very helpful with that. But I think the concept, and this is a best practice that I'm not the only tutor who does this, it's trying to customize some of this content based on the students' cultural backgrounds, some of their personal identifiers, their interests and backgrounds. So for my Italian students, I've used poems by Umberto Samba, by Dante. I've gone through TED Talks on human rights for one of my students particularly. I've gone through pandemic Milan fashion shows on YouTube using puppets. It's like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. It's an entire fashion line. But these are some of the things that become really, really important for my Russian students. I brought up the topic of who is the Dr. Seuss of Russia? And the reaction from my Russian students was just so amazing. It just brought this water flow of memories for them. And it really helped elucidate and engage students, because that's what it really is supposed to be about. Empowering them to talk about things that they're comfortable with, and really excelling how confident that they can be. My Venezuelan student, who has his green card now, he's been trying to work in the restaurant industry. We've done a lot on food. Food is so important. We go through food articles and all sorts of videos and all sorts of different perspectives of restaurants during the pandemic. My Japanese students, a big fan of anime, of musicals, and we've gone through YouTube videos together to kind of talk about it. We've gone through Tokyo museums and restaurant reviews in Tokyo. So these are all kind of empowering things. So, the bottom line is, these are the things that I really feel that I've achieved, and really to actually see some of this progress is just amazing.
Great. Well, thanks, Brian. There's something that was important that you pointed out, is the creativity that comes out of these conversations. Looking for resources and tailoring them to your student, but also so that you have an engaging conversation with them as well, is actually a really important part of EIA and the conversations that happen. And it is also important to point out that, yes, now that we have come online using Zoom to have remote conversations, it has opened the door a bit for ways for tutors to continue to be even more creative than before, despite the challenges in not being able to sit face-to-face with a tutor and student. But thank you, Brian. And that was a wonderful list of all the resources that tutors can utilize. So thanks for that.
Sure.
I'm going to pass it on to Ginny now. So what has been your biggest achievement as a tutor?
Okay, well, hopefully this is my achievement. Certainly what I aim for, I think above anything else, is to help the students feel comfortable and confident, both in speaking English and in living in the United States. Because so many of the students their English is far better than they realize, but because it's not perfect in their mind, they're a bit reticent to speak. So some of what I want to do is make them feel more comfortable. Also, I'm very interested in culture, both learning about the students' culture, and if you get started talking about the resources in New York City, I can go on forever, and I shouldn't, because the students are supposed to talk more than I am. So I like to share that with them, and I like to follow their lead about what they're interested in. So it's very rewarding when in the year students have come back to me and they've said, you know, I went to the doctor and this time I didn't need a translator, or I went to a parent-teacher conference at my kid's school and I didn't need a translator. And I've probably, looked at students' resumes and helped them with that, helped them with papers for school, helped them with citizenship classes. And, when they come back and say, yes, I got a good mark, or yes, I passed the citizenship test, that's very rewarding.
Well, great. Thanks, Ginny. Yeah, you bring up another important point of our conversations really focusing in on confidence building. It is one of the main pillars of our conversations in English in Action. And it's definitely a great feeling to see a student who may have been shy in using English or who was not as confident before, but going through maybe a year of English in Action to really see this change and really see them grow as a person because of how confident they're getting using English in their everyday lives. So thank you for that response, Jenny. That was great.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the next question. And this one is for Hong Wen. What was the most helpful conversation that you have had with your tutor?
Thank you. My tutor helps me to have better critical thinking. For example, we engage in role play, as in civic engagement, life situations, or intellectual questions. So in such a way, I could learn to think from different perspectives and appreciate diverging views. In addition, my tutors would share with me their personal or family experiences, which helped me to understand the American culture more thoroughly. I also learned how they become resilient when faced with challenges.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Definitely sounds like your conversations are going just beyond just learning English to bigger themes. So that's great to hear.
All right, well, I mean, we've definitely talked about how the conversations have impacted students' lives and help them assimilate when they come here to the United States. But I have a question, and this is going to go directed at Brian. How did tutoring your students impact your life specifically?
Well, I think I feel I've been extremely fortunate to be involved in a lot of social action initiatives over the last decade. I think English in Action has provided me a wonderful and fulfilling opportunity to do that. And I think in some ways, I feel that I've become a stronger global citizen. And it's been a tremendous way to give back to New York City and even to the EIA community, including a great staff at the ESU and a diverse and intelligent group of tutors. At the same time, because of the pandemic, travel has been curtailed quite a bit. But in some cases, I think that having the opportunity to work with such a diverse group of students is almost like a staycation. There's a famous Mark Twain quote that basically says, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And many of our people need it sorely on these accounts, especially these days. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one's little corner of the earth. And that was a quote by Mark Twain. And it was actually one of the quotes that actually made him famous even before he became known more as a novelist. This was a travelogue. And I really think that the opportunity to really have conversations with a lot of different cultures has really had a very broadened impact on my life.
Well, great. Yeah, I mean, you'll see in English in action of people really become highly motivated enough to that even though it is a volunteer job, it does become part of your life, and you do make long-lasting relationships that carry on. And I'm glad you talked about how it's helped during this pandemic with stay-at-home orders and coming together and continuing kind of that kind of routine is actually a pretty heartwarming thing to feel, I think, during such a time. So thanks for that, Brian. On the other side of the coin here, I wanted to pass it on to Ginny with the question of what is one challenge you faced as a tutor?
Okay. One challenge is I'm a native New Yorker, so naturally I talk fast. And I think it took me about 10 years to learn how to slow down a little. And it's always a dance because you want the students to understand you, but also I'm not the only person they have to understand. They have to understand people that they meet in daily life. So if I slow down too much and simplify the language too much, it's not helping them really, or it's helping them a little, but not as much. And if I'm too fast and I use too many idioms without explaining them, then that's no good either because they don't understand me. So it's always, trying to find the right level, the right speed. And hopefully I've learned how to do it a little better over time.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that is a really important thing in terms of kind of the two-way street that we talk about with conversations, that it is a two-way street between tutor and student, but you never think about like the barriers that happen on both sides of the conversation. So thank you for explaining that. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so we're actually, we've been getting some questions from the audience that actually we're gonna ask one of them now. So I just have to find, okay, so this question is actually from, I believe, Jeff in Kansas City, Missouri. And he was asking this to Fernando and to Hong Wen. How do you like using Zoom questions, Zoom in comparison to in-person sessions for your EIA?
Well, I can go first. Well, so of course it took a time to adjust, but I think Zoom is very helpful. I think is kind of easy to use, and we can, even if we have some questions about language and I have to type something for my tutor to understand, I can do it. And I think it works okay. Of course, it's not like meeting in person because you don't have the body language that you can get in person, but I think has been working well with me.
That's good. And what about Hong Wen? How do you find the Zoom sessions?
Yeah, to me, the pronunciation is, I could hear the pronunciation more clearly in the Zoom setting. So I really enjoy it. And also we can share our life, our personal life with each other. So I think it's also, and also it's very private for both of us. So I think it's very good to build the relationship. So I never met my tutors in person. So I'm looking forward to seeing them, to meeting them in person in the near future.
Well, that's great. I think we are all finding that with Zoom, we get a little bit more glimpses into each other's personal lives with pets and things like that. So that's an interesting perspective to hear. So the next question that I'm going to ask is for Fernando. What was the most memorable experience that you and your tutor shared?
Well, so as mentioned before, I've had Ginny as my tutor for over a year so far. And we've had lots of memorable experiences, but I would like to talk about after strictly quarantine for 4 or 5 months. Over the last weeks, we've met in person to have our sessions in different spots around the city. Obviously, we respected all the safety measures, like such as meeting in an outdoor area, keeping social distance, and wearing masks all the time. But it's been nice because I've been learning a lot about New York City history or culture. But what I would like to highlight is that Ginny has played an important kind of role as a person who has helped me to understand some issues regarding American society. Because we explore extensively, discuss history, politics, geography, economy in our sessions. So it's been important to me to understand the state of art in this sense. She's always shares valuable perspectives about the issues, and which makes me understand how things work here, or as well what I should, for example, consider before making some decisions. And she's the best rounded person I've ever known, so it's always exciting and pleasant to talk with her and learn from her. So, for example, in the course of all the past months, we covered a wide variety of topics ranging from kind of general knowledge about places to visit here in New York to more dense subjects such as healthcare system or abortion laws and things like this. So it's always exciting. And I would like to thank Ginny to spend this time with me and teach me a lot.
Well, thank you. And I learn a lot too, so.
It sounds like, yes, you're lucky to have Ginny as a tutor. It sounds like you guys are working on a lot of great things. So it's good to hear. Okay, so I think I'm going to ask one more question to the students. So Fernando, what are your goals and dreams for the future?
Well, thinking about it, I'm sure that one of my main goals is to succeed in my professional career here. As a science researcher, I think here in the US is the most important place in the world to carry out what we call cutting edge research. So I hope that the outcomes of my research projects here can kind of can impact the community, which would be very rewarding to me. Another aspect I would like, I've got very good friends in Brazil, but I think I don't have closer friends here yet. So another thing I would like to accomplish is to make friends here with whom I can be close to. So with whom I can be close. Because I really believe that we learn when we share our experiences with others. I definitely want to have more friends here. And another thing, I enjoy the arts a lot, especially photography. So I would like to, because here in New York, I can have lots of good opportunities to study photography. So I would like to further study it.
Sounds like those are great goals, and
thank you.
New York is, I guess, a good place definitely for expanding our photography skills. Okay, so Hong-Wen, what are your goals and dreams for the future?
Okay, my dream is to integrate my professional skills as a doctor, health practitioner, to help people live their best healthy lives. I'm currently living my dream as an integrative health coach. So I welcome opportunities to serve, and I formerly worked as a practitioner oncologist and teaching as an associate professor in Taiwan. So I'm thrilled to be enjoying and communicating with all the various cultures here.
Well, definitely health right now is especially important. So we'll wish you the best of luck with that. So, okay, yeah, I think Matt has another question for the tutors.
Sure, yeah, I've just got one final question for both tutors. And that is, what's your favorite part of being a tutor and what keeps you coming back? Why don't we start with Ginny?
Okay, so as a tutor, I get to do two of my favorite things in life. One is meeting and talking with nice people, some of whom have become personal friends, but even, almost everybody I meet is just such a wonderful human being. It's a pleasure. The other thing that I love to do is learn, particularly about other cultures. And even before the pandemic, I could never travel as much as I wanted, a few little things like family and finances. So being a tutor, I'm able to meet people from all over the world, find out about their cultures, find out about their impressions of the United States, which is always interesting. And also to find out about the English language, because students ask me questions about English. I'm like, I never realized that. I have to go do some research. So I'm doing these things that I love. Plus, hopefully, I'm doing some good in the world. I'm having a positive impact on people's lives. So, it's win-win-win for me.
Oh, great. Thanks, Ginny. Yeah, I mean, it's such a great learning opportunity for both student and tutor to really grow as people. So thank you for getting into that. And thank you for being here. Brian, same question. What's your favorite part of being a tutor and what keeps you coming back?
Well, I think it's almost the same answer as Jenny's. It's really creating a personal and cultural connection with these students and seeing their growth as individuals as they learn new skills and you see them becoming more confident. The impact on this is greater than just helping them improving their conversational English. They're growing as people, they're feeling more confident, they're feeling more comfortable. And as you pointed out, Matt, that is really the pillars of really what the EIA program is supposed to do. But seeing some of the accomplishments, actually the first student I worked with almost 4 years ago, she was originally from Cuba. She did construction management in Spain, came to New York and thought she was going to clean offices, that there was nothing that was going to necessarily translate in a seamless way to her background. And I got to work with her. We did a lot of role playing. I helped her a little bit with her resume, and she got a job in construction management in New York. I was really sorry to lose the connection, but I felt so gratified knowing that she accomplished something that was her personal and professional goal. I work with students prepared to do oral presentations for some of the ESU programs. That was really good in terms of coaching them based on my drama communications background. Even, just helping students, just educating them on a lot of things. I mentioned one of my students from Venezuela, food. Just preparing him that, he could actually, if he wanted to, become a consultant during the pandemic for restaurants. That's kind of the relationship that we've had, the kind of content that we've gone through. So really seeing that personal and professional growth for students is what keeps me coming back. It's knowing that I felt I had a role in helping them accomplish their goals.
Great. Yeah, it's definitely a springboard for students, and tutors really have a hand in that. And it's something that's really important and at the core of the program in English in Action. But I want to thank you guys, to all our panelists, for answering our questions. So thanks. And I think,
yeah.
Please
So
go ahead.
thank you as well. You've all spoken eloquently and in amazing English for the students about the program and how it's impacted your life. We wanted to give a chance for the audience to ask some questions now. So Jasmine, I'm wondering, do we have any questions in the chat from the audience?
Yeah, we have some really good ones, and I think we have time for a few. The first one is from Clark Goodwin in Atlanta. and it's a question for Fernando, but I'm sure Hong Wen can also answer if she has anything for us. And the question is, have you suggested to some of your friends they might like to learn more about the ESU and about English in Action?
Well, I do this all the time, actually. Some friends just attend classes from the ARNIC program. So I always encourage them to join English in Action because, as mentioned before, for most of us, it's the only opportunity to practice English with a native kind of individually. So I think for me, it's the most helpful thing is to have this time every week to practice my English with a native speaker. So I'm always encouraging everybody join the program.
Thank you for that, Fernando. And Hong Wen, have you had any experiences of suggesting EIA or the ESU to any of your friends?
Yeah. My friends, they are so excited to know that there is such an organization and a place like a family that we can belong to. And so I want to thank you for people who make this come true for all the immigrants and the newcomers.
Yes, I could definitely agree to that as well. Even when we're doing it online, I find that there is a community online that continues to speak to one another. Another question we have is perhaps more for the staff, but the question is, so the EIA doesn't have one-on-one meetings in person currently. So are we just currently doing it virtually?
Yes, at this time, all of the sessions are virtual. And they've been virtual since, I think, April. So it's definitely been a period of a lot of transition. But like I think Brian was mentioning, and the students also made clear, is that, you know, Zoom and virtual conversations, while they were a new challenge, I think they brought a lot of new potential to the English in Action program. So I think it's actually helped us become a little bit more excited for the future with our program.
Well, thank you so much for answering that, Carl. And I guess we have one more question for just the tutors. And the question is, what makes EIA different from other volunteer programs? Either Ginny or Brian can start
I'll
first.
start.
Thank you.
I think that the reason why it is unique is because of the consistent interaction with the community. And I think, as I mentioned before, I think the opportunity to really see that sort of personal and professional growth in our students, it's just, you know, really, really tremendous. And the fact that it is local is really feeling that you're doing something for the local community, even at, you know, New York at large. Ginny?
Yeah, I mean, the sense of community is really wonderful. I also think it's great that through the ARNIC program, ESU provides not only English instruction, but support in many other areas, because one of the difficulties or challenges in being a tutor sometimes is when you know that there are many problems in the student's life, whether economic or family or dealing with bureaucracy. And it's very good to know that they have support through ARNIC for those kind of problems.
Jasmine, I believe there was one more question in the chat from
right.
Barbara that you wanted.
It just came through. Barbara wanted to know, for the students, do you practice English with your friends or colleagues from your own country?
Well, I do, but it's not so often. I think I mostly practice with my tutors and some friends I made here, but sometimes I practice with friends from Brazil, but it's not so often.
To me, to practice English with tutors in EIA is to learn the feelings with behind the word. Sometimes we can use the very similar words, but each word has the meaning, feelings on it. So only practice with people who speak English as the first or second language, I can learn language with the culture together.
I'd like to thank all of our panelists again for really sharing their experiences and giving us great insight into the power of this program and the connections that are made between our students and our tutors. I think that we could continue this conversation for a long time, but we're going to need to draw it to a close. But before I do that, I would also like to thank our immigrant programs team who've worked together to try to bring this program to you and really share some of our own passion about English in action and its great value. I did want to mention that next month we will be hosting another event that we hope some of you can join. It's particularly for ESU members who want to learn more about how to set up an English in Action conversation program in your branch so that we can expand the experience beyond New York and some of the branches like Kansas City and Monmouth County who already are running English in Action programs with local partners. So I invite and encourage all of you to watch your emails because we will be sending out more information about that event once we have the date. So I hope you'll all join me thanking again all of our panelists for being here today and really sharing their experience. It's been a wonderful occasion to celebrate everyone's achievements and to celebrate English in Action on this occasion of the 100th anniversary of the ESU. Thank you, everyone. Stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.